One of the biggest life lessons that Gen Z is going to have to learn is how to love what is good for them because they're always distracted nowadays. And everybody, it's not just Gen Z, but I think the reason that Gen Z is going to have it the hardest, more so than we've seen in other generations before, compared to anybody else, in a way that we have everything. We have all of the knowledge, we have the sum of man's knowledge at our fingertips in every single shape and form at all times, but we do not know how to have the implemented wisdom. People are more lonely than ever. People are, even when they're around people, it's like you can look at the crowd and you can see the crowd, but they all have lonely and sad eyes most of the time. And it's oftentimes the loners that are having the most vibrant, lives that they have, and they're having a ball even though they're alone and they don't really seem like it. It's like you can just tell by their energy that the loners seem to be at least peaceful, at least living in a life of peace. And so I do want to talk today about why Gen Z is going to have it harder and is having it harder than anybody I that I've known, because they've had it the easiest. Everything's been given to them. And so what do you do, and how do you give something to somebody? How do you show somebody how to express their soul if they don't even know how to express it, or even if they have a soul to begin with? They're always so distracted. And so before we go any further, I want to apologize if my voice is a little bit off today. I woke up with a sore throat and it was very strange. I had some very strange dreams last night, dreams with aliens as well coming into play. And it's like these aliens in my dream spiritually attacked me, and I woke up with a sore throat. And it was interesting because in the dream, they were trying to cut off my communication and my communicative abilities. But we're here, we're not stopping, and we can tell the aliens to go kick rocks. So, but anyway, just kind of an interesting series of events today, but I do want to talk about this because I think it's something that needs to be talked about. And Gen Z is basically at a crossroads where they have all the tools, they have all the resources, they have all the knowledge to do whatever they want to do in this life. I mean, we literally have people building spaceships to go like or starships, whatever you want to call them, rocket ships to go to other planets potentially. We have that capability right now. We've got nuclear abilities. We've got ways of transportation we've never had before. We've had ways of agriculture and farming, and we've been able to study the anthropology of our civilizations for such a long time that we know just how smart our ancestors really were. And yet it's seemingly as if all of that knowledge and all of this resource and all of these ways and avenues in which we can really grow as a species is being deteriorated before our very eyes. And it's because we have access to everything. I think that in a way, this magical device, the phone and the laptops and the TVs and all of this, as beautiful as it is, and I do think that there's more potential for good than bad. It's just that we need to have the will to do so. We have all of these different things, right? But we do not have the will to actually make a commitment. And this is what Gen Z is going to have to cultivate on their own. We can show them, technically I'm a millennial, I think, but I think the upcoming generation, Gen Z, they don't have to hunt. They don't have to look for these resources. They don't have to look for other ways of connecting, so to speak, right, with people all over the world. I know that my sister growing up, her best friend was someone that she never met. And they talked through like some kind of video game app or something like that. And because she was a big gamer, my sister, growing up, and she definitely had a lot of these kinds of friends around the world, but there was one in particular, and it was very strange because I didn't realize what that really was at the time. I didn't realize what that was, but a lot of the times, none of the kids in my family, I had a younger brother and a younger sister, and I was the oldest, and none of us really, maybe except for my brother, was able to really connect on a deep, intimate level, whether it's through friendships or what anything with others, unless it was virtual. And I didn't know why that was for quite a while. But it was almost as if, in my retrospect and in my self evaluation and self awareness, I see that the faculties of loneliness played a big factor in this. Because, well, our family wasn't necessarily a normal family, okay? We had the kind of family where outside was a completely different person and a completely different way of communicating with the world than it was with inside. You know, as soon as that door closed inside the house, the whole dynamic of the house changed, and it was as if the outside world wasn't even real anymore, and the house was reality. And out in the real world, it was actually just this fake illusion. And I can see that there's a certain pattern that is starting to rapidly accelerate this process in which we're seeing the younger generation become more online, become more connected than ever, and yet more disconnected from their souls. I think this is what's going to be the frontier in which Gen Z is going to have to come to a crossroads with. They're going to have to choose whether or not they try to see that there's something more in their souls, or if they just submit to the false reality that they want to live, because the false reality is sometimes more acceptable, but it's not always the case. It's not always the case that this fantasy is going to be what saves you. And I learned that growing up. I learned that growing up in my household. I knew that seeing these kinds of people and the way that they were interacting and how they interacted with each other, and I'm not trying to dog on them or anything, but you know, sometimes people are just not going where you are, right? And so I had to make certain decisions to cut off contact with my family, and I explained my reasoning. I tried to help heal the situation. I tried to do everything I could to rectify the situation as a whole, but it just wasn't anything that could really get going. There was no reciprocation, really. And I realized in my retrospect, in my analysis, it's that they were so consumed by the online digital civilization that they began to think that the fantasy was what was real, not the reality. And that was where I really began to see that they're really not going where I'm going, because I want to live in reality. And so that's one of the reasons why I had to, I mean, there's a lot of reasons, but that was one of the reasons why I had to cut them off. I didn't want to. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but I learned a lot from this, and I can now see the general public, because in some ways the fate of the individual is the fate of the society. And seeing what happened in my own life and seeing how things are progressing and escalating in the society that we see today, I can see with a very clear understanding that people are beginning to think that the reality is what's online. And they know it's not, but they want to believe it so much. And it's hard to watch in some cases. It's hard to see that this is actually something that they they truly believe. They truly believe that this fantasy, this illusion, is something tangible. And even though they get certain experiences from it, it's almost going to cause a direct existential crisis. If that might even be an understatement at this point. I think that the battle for your soul, especially as a Gen Z person, and I'm not recommending anybody to go cut off people just willy-nilly, okay? I don't think that's the right answer, but I'm just saying that the battle for your soul is going to be at the forefront. This is actually Soul Calibur, right? This is actually Soul Calibur out here. And we're just realizing that how real this life really is. And I don't know, I think there's going to be a lot of Gen Z that are going to be prepared for it, because I can see it. Even just within the Regal Change Academy, we have some people that are Gen Z, and they are understanding of the complete catastrophe that is society, but they're making proper decisions. And even if it's not panning out the way that they think it is, they're still gaining knowledge. And I think at this point, if you're a Gen Z person, the most proper thing to do is not money or status or anything like that. It's the maturation of your soul and the expression of your soul therein. You see, one thing that I've learned about art, for example, I've got a lot of different art pieces around, and I do a lot of art myself, and I do a lot of guitar, play a lot of guitar, I write as well. And one thing that I've learned through creative action is that you actually get to see your vision play out through your will to bend reality to your will. And what people don't want you to know is how strong and capable and imaginative you really are as a human being. And to recognize this fact, and to recognize that you are much more like, this truly is a battle for your soul, for the expression of your soul. And you can either get caught up in the clout chasing and the fame and the money and all of that, or you could actually try to spread a message of inspiration, of hope, of real authenticity, of fear in some senses. I'm not saying that you should be fear mongering, but to properly fear the Lord is actually a righteous thing. And he's the only one I do fear, and what I fear. You know, the reality, for example, me getting sick. Every time, I don't get sick very often. In fact, it's like maybe once every year or two. And this isn't even a bad sickness, but, and praise the Lord for that. But at least so far, I don't think it's going to get much worse, but still, because I don't have a fever or anything. But still, you know, just getting that little glimpse of sickness, and physically you're unable to do certain things, like this video. I cannot be as clear-minded as I want to be necessarily, but I'm still going to put in the effort and do what I need to do, because I've committed myself to making these daily videos on important topics. And I've made a commitment, and not just to myself, but to the Most High. And so that kind of dedication, when you start to see that there's a hindrance, a real hindrance to that. Like the fear of the Lord really sets in. And I don't know about you guys, but every time I get sick, like you can just feel the complete shift in how your health really is sometimes, even if it's just like a little bit, a minuscule sickness. Like this one right now, I just have a sore throat. That's it. But still, I have this awareness of death at the back of my mind. And I've contemplated death enough to this point to where I'm ready to die, but I don't want to. I'm ready, and if that's the case, so be it. I'm detached completely from everything in this world. But I don't want to die. I don't want to die just yet. I'd like to continue living. And that's the thing. You know, Yeshua says in the Bible that let the dead bury the dead. And that's exactly what I chose to do. And with my family, they were spiritually dead and they wanted to stay that way. And it was hard for me to accept that. And it took a lot of mourning for me to really come to that acceptance. But once I did, I was able to fully live and to live each moment as if the Christ is coming. Because some people have talked about whether we're in the end of days or not, and I don't know necessarily if we're in the end of days. I don't think we are. I think we're pretty close, maybe. But I think we should always live as if Christ is going to come in the next moment. I think we should live as if Christ is going to be there, because he is. He is already there in our spirit, in our heart, because we are the body of Christ, as the Corinthians said. But it's more about how you live each moment, how you live each day, to do what is still necessary. And this is what Gen Z is going to have to face. They have everything that they need. Now they have to just have the will to do so, to make something out of it. Because if they don't, that's where the catastrophe will come. But I have great faith in the human species. I don't think that we've gotten here and we've gotten this far for nothing. I don't think that's the case. I would like to have faith that this is something that is just going to be another part of the story of humanity. And with the grand scheme of things outlined in the top echelons of the spiritual and philosophical and psychological view of this life, I think it's going to be important that we recognize how to support Gen Z. And that's the encouragement of embracing the soul and letting go of these worldly things. And I understand that the degeneracy it's really not good. It's really not good right now. A lot of people are living in degeneracy. But I have complete faith that the people that do have eyes to see and ears to hear will be they will be the strongest among us. And I think in some instances we're going to be that spark. Like I've seen this in my meditations with certain people that I do consultations with as well, where I am supposed to be the spark for these people, and I'm supposed to give them something. I'm supposed to give them the technical spiritual tools so that they can do something more with it. And if that's going to be what I must do, then I will do it, because I'm a servant of the Most High. And with Gen Z, all that I can do is give the proper knowledge and wisdom so that they don't have to make the same mistakes that I did, and that they can live a better life without all of the unnecessary suffering that I went through. And it's not necessarily about me, it's more about loving people so much that you don't want to see them suffer because of the unnecessary things that are going on in this chaotic world. It's a cold world, and there's nothing that I hate more than to see people that I care about suffering for no reason. I mean, it's bad enough to have a reason to suffer, but to suffer for no reason, to choose degeneracy just because, man, like that's a rough. It's tough to watch, and that's what a lot of the times where I do these videos and why I do these videos comes from. It's out of a compassion and recognizing that it's a suffering with more than it is a watching someone suffer. And I really, again, have the faith that the light bearers that will come up and rise up will be the strongest among us, because they're going to have no choice but to be. They're going to have no choice but to do so. So with all that being said, I hope this message was useful and insightful. This turned into be a little bit more of a philosophically existential and spiritual video than I anticipated, but because I just go with the spirit wherever I need to go here. So I hope it was insightful and educational for you guys out there. I do have some announcements here, so you guys might, I don't know if you guys can see this. I've got the Life Begins Where Pain is Conquered. I've got a bunch of different kinds of merch on my regalchange.com website. People have asked me for like a year and a half ago, they asked me to do a bunch of t-shirts and all that with my sayings, and they're like, oh, you should put that on a t-shirt or put that on a hoodie. And so I did. So if you want to check that out, go check that out. I also want to give a shout out to everybody in the Regal Change Academy. And I want to thank everybody that has been moving over from the X platform to from the YouTube platform over to the X and the Rumble platform, as well as all the Instagram DMs that you guys have been sending me. I really appreciate your support. And with that being said, peace be with you all. Till next time.